A group of officers was dispatched to a hotel room to conduct an investigation. Upon entering, they were met with a chilling sight. A body lay motionless, meticulously covered with a blanket. It was as if someone had deliberately tried to orchestrate the scene in such a way that it would create an eerie sense of calm. A pillow had been carefully placed beneath the victim's head, giving the impression that she had simply lain down to rest. Small bruises were scattered across her skin, subtle yet evident upon closer inspection. More disturbingly, her arms displayed clear defensive traces, a tragic indication that she had fought fiercely in her final moments, struggling desperately to fend off her attacker. When the medical examiner later performed the autopsy, the cause of death was officially determined to be asphyxiation. Hey friends, liking, commenting, and subscribing only takes a few seconds, but it means so much to us. Every click and comment fuels our passion. Thanks. Today, we will explore a true crime case involving Alicia Kimberly Bromfield. She was born on August 28, 1990, in the heart of Joliet, Illinois. Born into a loving and vibrant household, she was the eldest of 5 siblings, a position that naturally instilled in her a deep sense of responsibility and care. Growing up with 2 younger sisters and 2 brothers, Alicia quickly took on the role of a nurturing older sibling. She thrived in her role as a leader within her family, and her natural inclination to support and uplift those around her carried into every aspect of her life. From an early age, Alicia exhibited a keen intelligence and an insatiable curiosity. In school, she was a standout student, consistently ranking among the top of her class. Teachers and mentors alike recognized her strong work ethic, impressive academic abilities, and relentless determination to succeed. But beyond her intellectual strengths, Alicia was also known for her kindness and charisma. She had a rare gift for making people feel valued and heard. As she moved into her teenage years, Alicia began to think seriously about her future. By the time she reached high school, she had set her sights on a career in law, a field that perfectly aligned with her sharp mind, passion for justice, and unwavering dedication to helping others. She knew that achieving this goal would require hard work, both academically and financially. Her family lived modestly, and with her parents still raising her younger siblings, Alicia understood that she needed to contribute to her own education. Determined to make her dreams a reality, she took a job at a local garden center at just 16 years old. As a florist, she learned to arrange bouquets, design elaborate floral displays, and handle custom orders with a level of creativity and precision that impressed both customers and management alike. Over time, she developed a true passion for the work, and her eye for beauty and detail made her one of the most talented florists at the shop. Balancing work with her rigorous academic schedule was no easy feat, but Alicia managed it with grace. She attended her local high school before transferring to a Catholic academy, where she continued to excel. Eventually, her hard work paid off when she was accepted into Western Illinois University's prestigious criminal justice and forensic psychology program. This was a major milestone in her journey, and she was determined to see it through to the end. She continued working at the garden center to support herself, saving every dollar she could to pay for tuition, rent, and basic necessities. By the time she reached her junior year of college, she was just over a year away from completing her degree. Everything seemed to be going according to plan, and she was eagerly looking forward to the bright future she had worked so hard to build. However, during the second semester of her junior year, everything changed in a way she never could have anticipated. It was during this time that Alicia met a young man named Michael, a fellow student at Western Illinois University. Michael was studying economics, and at first their relationship seemed promising. They spent time together, shared their aspirations for the future, and enjoyed the excitement of young love. But after about 6 months of dating, in the spring of 2012, Alicia received life-changing news. She was pregnant. Though the pregnancy was unexpected, Alicia embraced it with unwavering optimism and joy. She had always envisioned becoming a mother someday, and despite the challenges ahead, she felt ready to face them. However, when she shared the news with Michael, his response was anything but supportive. He made it painfully clear that he was not prepared to take on the responsibilities of fatherhood. He adamantly refused to marry her, pressured her to terminate the pregnancy, and when she stood firm in her decision to keep the baby, he severed all ties with her. Michael walked away without hesitation, leaving Alicia to navigate this new chapter of her life alone. Despite the heartbreak, Alicia refused to let it break her spirit. She knew the road ahead would be difficult, but she was not without support. Her parents, Cheryl and James, stood by her side, reassuring her that she would not have to face this challenge alone. They offered both emotional and financial assistance, helping her prepare for the arrival of her child. Determined to provide the best possible life for her baby, Alicia continued working tirelessly, saving every bit of money she could and purchasing all the essentials she would need. She truly believed that with love, perseverance, and family by her side, she could overcome anything. In the summer of 2012, during a routine ultrasound, Alicia received the joyful confirmation that she was expecting a baby girl. Overcome with happiness, she carefully selected a name for her daughter, Ava Lucia. The anticipation of meeting her child filled her with newfound strength and excitement. She spent months preparing, purchasing a crib, stroller, baby clothes, bottles, and toys. Though the challenges of being a single mother loomed over her, she remained optimistic. Her plan was to continue working and studying for as long as possible, knowing that her seasonal job would grant her paid time off in the winter. This would give her valuable time to adjust to motherhood while also preparing for her final semester and upcoming graduation. Alicia was confident that she could handle the responsibilities of parenthood and continue pursuing her goals. She envisioned a beautiful future for herself and her daughter, one filled with love, success, and stability. As previously mentioned, Alicia had been working at the garden center since she was 16. She had built a solid reputation there, earning the respect and admiration of both her coworkers and management. Just 6 months before Alicia was hired, a man named Brian Cooper had taken over as the regional manager of the garden center. At the time, Brian Cooper was 31 years old. From the moment Alicia joined the team at the garden center, he took an immediate and noticeable interest in her. Initially, however, since she was still in high school, he maintained a professional demeanor, keeping his distance while subtly ensuring that she trusted him. Over time, he ingratiated himself into her life, carefully constructing the image of a mentor and friend. Alicia, who was naturally kind-hearted and eager to please, appreciated his guidance and saw no reason to distrust him. As their acquaintance deepened, Brian found small ways to integrate himself into her routine. He frequently praised her work ethic and reliability, complimenting her in ways that made her feel valued as an employee. Wanting to ensure their relationship extended beyond the workplace, he began asking small favors of her. He invited her to walk his dog while he was away, even giving her a spare key to his apartment as a sign of his trust. For Alicia, it seemed like an easy and harmless way to earn extra money. And she genuinely enjoyed spending time with Brian's Labrador, a friendly and affectionate dog she quickly grew attached to. To her, Brian appeared kind, respectful, and generous, someone she could look up to and count on. But in reality, he was slowly and methodically blurring the lines between professionalism and something far more personal. As time passed, Brian's interest in Alicia became more pronounced, manifesting in ways that made her increasingly uncomfortable. His compliments became more direct, often lingering too long on her appearance. He would tell her she was beautiful, that she had a radiant smile, that any man would be lucky to have her. To new employees, he went as far as introducing Alicia as his girlfriend, laughing it off as a joke when she protested. But it wasn't a joke, not to him. His behavior grew bolder, and soon he was openly flirting with her, asking her on dates and suggesting that they should be together. Alicia was stunned. The idea of a romantic relationship with him had never once crossed her mind. She saw him as nothing more than a boss and, at most, a distant friend. She immediately rejected his advances, but due to her kind and non-confrontational nature, she struggled to be firm. She hoped he would take the hint and move on, but instead, Brian convinced himself that she was simply playing hard to get. Determined to win her over, he began manipulating their time at work, finding excuses to call her into the stockroom under the pretense of needing help with inventory or other trivial matters. Once they were alone, he would try to get close, making unwanted advances and attempting to kiss her. Alicia, unsure of how to handle the situation, did her best to avoid him. She made a conscious effort never to be alone with him, strategically timing her breaks and staying in busy areas of the store. But her avoidance only seemed to fuel his obsession. His behavior shifted from persistent flirting to something much darker. Brian's once friendly demeanor turned hostile. When Alicia ignored his advances, he became cruel and vindictive, nitpicking her work, criticizing her in front of customers, and making her life at the garden center unbearable. He began displaying jealous tendencies, closely monitoring her interactions with male coworkers and growing visibly agitated when she spoke to them. He even interfered with her lunch breaks, frequently preventing her from leaving if she had plans to eat with someone else. His obsession with control extended beyond the workplace, as he manipulated her schedule to ensure they were always working at the same time. But the most alarming escalation came when he began forcing her to accompany him on work-related trips. Under the guise of training sessions or company events, Brian would insist that Alicia travel with him to other cities and states. These trips were nothing more than thinly veiled attempts to force her into spending time alone with him. Every trip followed the same pattern. He would make advances, ask her out again. Then everything took a turn for the worse when Alicia started dating Michael. When Brian discovered that she was in a relationship, it was as if something inside him snapped. He ramped up his harassment, burying her under an impossible workload. If she refused an extra shift or declined one of his work trips, he would lash out, berating her in front of customers and coworkers alike. He seemed to take pleasure in humiliating her, pushing her to the point of tears with his outbursts. Alicia contemplated quitting. She wanted nothing more than to escape his grasp, but her circumstances made that impossible. When she discovered she was pregnant, and especially after Michael abandoned her, her fear of losing her only source of income became overwhelming. Searching for a new job while preparing to become a single mother was a risk she simply couldn't take. No matter how much she despised working under Brian, she felt trapped. She had no choice but to endure. Then, when Brian learned that Alicia was expecting and preparing to raise her child alone, he shocked her with an unexpected and deeply unsettling proposal. He offered to marry her. He told her that he would take care of her and her baby, that he would even give his last name to the child. But Alicia, already deeply disturbed by his behavior, rejected him outright. She wanted nothing to do with him in any capacity, and by this point she was no longer just uncomfortable around him. His obsession had morphed into something dangerous, a relentless pursuit designed to wear her down until she finally gave in to him. But Alicia had no intention of surrendering. Every time she rejected his advances, he retaliated with calculated cruelty, making her work environment increasingly unbearable. If she dared to set any personal boundaries, he would swiftly and viciously punish her in ways that ensured she felt the full weight of his power over her. Cooper controlled nearly every aspect of her job, and he wielded that power mercilessly. If Alicia scheduled time off for a prenatal appointment, he would suddenly change her shifts, forcing her to reschedule over and over again. If she asked for an afternoon off to rest, he would deny it under the pretense of being short-staffed, only to turn around and grant the same request to another employee. With just over 3 months left until her daughter's arrival and the start of her legally protected maternity leave, Alicia made the difficult decision to endure. She would keep her head down, avoid confrontation as much as possible, and survive these last few months. Once her daughter is born, she will take paid leave and then run away, finding a new job in her field and cutting all ties with Brian Cooper forever. Though she put on a brave face, the weight of what she was experiencing was suffocating. She told her mother, Cheryl, bits and pieces about her troubles at work, occasionally venting about her overbearing boss, but she never went into much detail. She didn't want to cause unnecessary worry, and she believed she could handle the situation herself. Cheryl had no idea just how much her daughter was enduring on a daily basis, or how much danger she was truly in. Then, in August 2012, Brian Cooper made a new demand, one that sent a chill of unease through Alicia. He wanted her to accompany him to his sister's wedding in another state. She refused immediately, knowing full well that she wanted nothing to do with him outside of work. But this time, he used a different tactic. Instead of his usual aggressive persistence, he played on her sympathy. He spoke of how much his sister meant to him, explaining that with their father having recently passed away, it was now his responsibility to walk her down the aisle. He painted a picture of grief and loneliness, subtly guilt-tripping Alicia into considering his request. His approach was carefully crafted. He acted as if it were nothing more than a friendly favor, assuring her that after this, he would stop bothering her. He promised that she would only be introduced as a close friend and colleague, emphasizing that there would be no expectations beyond attending the wedding as his guest. To further convince her, he swore that they would be staying at the same hotel as the other guests, in separate rooms. Alicia hesitated, but eventually gave in. She had always been someone who kept her word, and Brian had played his cards well. He made it seem as though this was a once-in-a-lifetime request, something that truly meant the world to him. And above all, he had promised that this would be the last time he asked for anything from her. When she mentioned the trip to her mother, Cheryl's concern was immediate. Something about the situation felt off, and she couldn't shake the nagging feeling that Alicia shouldn't go. She urged her daughter to reconsider, warning her that Cooper's interest in her had always seemed strange. But Alicia, ever responsible and honest, had already agreed, and she didn't want to back out. She reassured her mother that everything would be fine, promising to keep her updated throughout the trip. Early in the morning on August 18th, Brian Cooper arrived to pick Alicia up. She climbed into his car, hoping that despite her unease, things would remain strictly professional. The drive started off normally enough. They made casual conversation, and Cooper seemed composed, polite, even pleasant. But by midday, everything changed. Alicia called her mother in distress. She wanted to come home immediately. She had been deceived once again. She had just discovered that Cooper had lied about the hotel arrangements. Instead of staying at the same location as the other wedding guests, he had booked them a room at a secluded resort area, miles away from the event. Worse yet, despite his earlier promises, there was only one room. He insisted that the main hotel had been fully booked and that he had no choice but to make alternate arrangements. As for the single-room reservation, he claimed that there were no other available options and that booking 2 separate suites would have been too expensive. Alicia was furious, but she was also exhausted. After a heated argument, Cooper managed to wear her down. She reluctantly agreed to stay, but this time she set firm boundaries. She made it absolutely clear that she would be sleeping in the bed while Brian would take the couch. And more importantly, she told him that once they returned home, their relationship, professional or otherwise, would be over. Cooper agreed with little resistance, nodding as if he had finally accepted the inevitable. To her relief, the conversation ended there, and for the remainder of the evening he kept his distance. The wedding itself proceeded smoothly. Cooper walked his sister down the aisle as planned, performing his role with the expected composure. Alicia remained polite but detached, doing her best to avoid any unnecessary interaction with him. Although they sat at the same table during the reception, they barely spoke. It was as if an unspoken wall had been erected between them, one that Alicia had no intention of breaking. Throughout the evening, Cooper's demeanor was eerily quiet. He drank heavily, glass after glass, but he did not cause a scene. Instead, he sat in brooding silence, his eyes dark and unreadable. Occasionally, he would glance at Alicia, but each time she caught his gaze, she looked away. She felt uneasy, but she reassured herself that it would all be over soon. When the night ended, Cooper drove Alicia back to the small, secluded resort hotel where they were staying. The drive was quiet, almost too quiet. Alicia stared out the window, eager to get inside, lock the door, and sleep off the unsettling evening. She still didn't fully trust Cooper, but at least for now, he seemed resigned to the fact that she wanted nothing to do with him outside of work. On the morning of August 19, at approximately 9 a.m., a man walked into a supermarket attached to a roadside gas station. His clothes were soaked through, clinging to his body as he moved with an almost eerie sense of calm. He approached an employee near the front counter and, in a disturbingly composed voice, asked to use the phone to call emergency services. What he said next sent a chill through the dispatcher on the line. The operator hesitated, asking whether it had been an accident. Without a hint of emotion, he responded just as casually. "Number I did it on purpose." There was a brief silence on the line before he added, almost as an afterthought, "But I'm actually a good person." After making the call, the man didn't try to run. He simply walked to a nearby table in the store, sat down, and waited in silence for law enforcement to arrive. When officers entered the store, he didn't resist. He willingly held out his hands, allowing them to slip the cuffs over his wrists as he quietly rode with them to the station to give his statement. Meanwhile, another team of officers was dispatched to the hotel room Cooper had mentioned. What they found inside was chilling. Upon entering, officers discovered a body lying on the floor, carefully covered with a blanket. A pillow had been placed beneath her head, as if someone had tried to stage the scene to look almost peaceful. But there was nothing peaceful about what had happened. Her skin bore evidence of small bruises, faint but visible, and her arms displayed defensive wounds, proof that she had fought desperately for her life. The medical examiner would later confirm that the cause of death was mechanical asphyxiation. Further forensic examination uncovered something even more disturbing. DNA found at the scene confirmed an assault had taken place. The positioning of the room, the lack of disorder, it all pointed to the same conclusion. The attack had been swift and unexpected, most likely occurring while the victim was either asleep or completely off guard. There had been no prolonged struggle. The neighboring guests reported hearing nothing unusual. From the moment he was taken into custody, Brian Cooper did not attempt to hide what he had done. In fact, he seemed eager to talk. With an unsettling level of detachment, he provided the police with a full account of the crime, repeating certain details as if they somehow lessened the severity of his actions. He insisted over and over again that, apart from this one act, he was a good person. He downplayed everything, acting as if it had been a momentary lapse rather than a premeditated killing. When asked why he had done it, he merely shrugged. As investigators pressed him for more details, he spun a web of self-serving lies. He fabricated an entire relationship, claiming that he and Alicia had been romantically involved for quite some time. He described imaginary moments of happiness, painting himself as a man who had been betrayed. In his twisted version of events, Alicia had been unfaithful, carrying another man's child. He claimed that despite her betrayal, he had still been willing to forgive her, even raise the baby as his own. But, according to his lies, she had mocked him, humiliated him, and cruelly shut him out. He insisted that she had only agreed to attend the wedding to spite him, to flaunt her rejection in his face. According to Cooper's statement, they had returned to the hotel after the reception by taxi, as he had consumed too much alcohol to drive. Once inside, Alicia had gone straight to the shower and then to bed, clearly eager for the night to be over. Meanwhile, he had stayed downstairs at the hotel bar, drinking more, stewing in his emotions, drowning in the growing rage that had been festering inside him for weeks. Eventually, he returned to the room. Alicia was already asleep. He stepped out onto the balcony, lost in thought, contemplating his next move. His obsession with her had become unbearable, and now, at the peak of his intoxication, he was convinced that she deserved to suffer as he believed she had made him suffer. Every rejection, every moment she had denied him, played over and over in his head, fueling his sick determination. Slumped in the chair by the balcony door, he emptied the last of the liquor bottle he had brought up from the hotel bar. The alcohol burned his throat, but he barely registered the sensation. His focus was entirely on Alicia, sleeping soundly in the dimly lit room, unaware of the danger standing just a few feet away. He rose to his feet, his movements slow and deliberate, as he stepped toward the bed and loomed over her, his breathing heavy with anticipation. As if sensing something was wrong, Alicia's eyes fluttered open. She saw him standing there, his expression unreadable in the darkness. Though groggy from sleep, instinct told her that something was very, very wrong. Sitting up, she asked him what was going on, her voice steady despite the unsettling situation. Cooper responded with an eerily casual suggestion. Once they got back home, they should go out together. A date. One last chance for her to change her mind. Alicia didn't hesitate. Still half asleep but firm, she simply said, "No." That single word was his breaking point. As Alicia lost consciousness, Cooper released his grip and took a step back, breathing heavily. He stared down at her motionless form. But it wasn't over. Moving with unsettling determination, he continued his actions. Moments later, something unexpected happened. Alicia stirred, showing signs of life. Summoning all her remaining strength, she attempted to fight back, doing everything she could to break free. However, she was weak and disoriented, struggling to regain control. Seeing this, he quickly overpowered her once again. Desperate to maintain dominance, he grabbed the nearest object and restrained her movements, ensuring she could no longer resist. Within moments, the struggle ceased. Her body went limp. She was gone. For a long time, Cooper simply sat next to her lifeless body, staring at nothing. The adrenaline that had surged through him minutes ago now faded into a hollow emptiness. Eventually, as if coming out of a daze, he stood and carefully covered her with a blanket. He placed a pillow beneath her head, an unsettling mimicry of care. Later, when questioned about these actions, he claimed that he did it because Alicia wouldn't have wanted to be found that way. When asked why he had placed a pillow under her head, he had no answer. But he wasn't ready to face the consequences. Cooper initially planned to take his own life. He attempted to inflict wounds on himself, but each time the pain proved unbearable. The injuries he inflicted were shallow, insufficient to cause serious harm. Realizing his failure, he abandoned the attempt. As the first light of morning crept through the hotel curtains, he knew he had to leave. Slipping out of the room, he wandered toward a nearby bay, his thoughts consumed by what he had done. He waded into the water up to his neck, intending to let himself sink beneath the surface and disappear forever. But when the cold waves lapped against his skin, panic set in. His survival instinct kicked in, and instead of surrendering to the depths, he swam back to shore. Defeated, he walked aimlessly along the road until he spotted a gas station in the distance. And that was when he made his decision. He walked inside the attached supermarket, his clothes dripping water onto the tile floor. Calmly, he approached an employee and requested to use the phone. That's when he decided to call emergency services and confess to everything. As investigators dug deeper, the truth became evident. A background check revealed that while Cooper had no formal criminal record, he had a history of disturbing behavior. Before Alicia started working at the garden center, another young woman had been employed there and had endured similar actions from him. She had reported his behavior to upper management, but her complaints had been ignored. Rather than endure further torment, she had chosen to quit. Despite multiple reports of misconduct, Cooper had remained employed. As a regional manager, he had been valued by upper management for meeting performance goals and keeping operations running smoothly. During the subsequent investigation into Alicia's murder, far more disturbing evidence came to light, proving that Cooper's obsession with her had spanned years and had escalated in ways far worse than anyone had imagined. Authorities uncovered a series of recordings on his personal computer. Recordings. He had secretly placed a hidden camera inside and used it to film Alicia without her knowledge. Each time she had visited his apartment to walk his dog, he had been watching her in secret. Despite initially confessing in gruesome detail to the crime, Cooper later attempted to backpedal, changing his plea and claiming he wasn't guilty due to intoxication. He admitted to being deeply obsessed with Alicia, even acknowledging that he had been fixated on her for years. However, he insisted that he never would have harmed her had he been sobering that night. His legal team, desperate to save him from the harshest possible sentence, attempted to argue that his extreme level of intoxication should serve as a mitigating factor. The prosecution, however, wasted no time dismantling this flimsy defense. The district attorney pointed out that Cooper had been able to recall every single detail of the night in question, down to his exact thought process, the precise moments of the attack, and even his attempts to stage the scene afterward. This was hardly the behavior of someone acting in an unconscious or purely impulsive state. Yet, as shocking as it may seem, the jury was unable to reach a unanimous verdict regarding the full extent of Cooper's culpability. 2 jurors believed that his intoxication should be considered a mitigating factor, arguing that he had not been in full control of his faculties at the time of the crime. This deadlock meant that Alicia's grieving family had to endure the agony of a retrial. Cheryl Bromfield, Alicia's mother, refused to let her daughter's name be tarnished by legal loopholes that could allow her killer to receive anything less than the full weight of justice. While awaiting the second trial, she tirelessly fought to ensure that no other family would ever have to suffer the same injustice. She drafted petitions, met with lawmakers, and sent impassioned letters. Her efforts paid off. By April 2014, the state governor signed critical amendments into law, ensuring that voluntary intoxication could no longer be used as a defense in cases involving violent offenses. From that moment on, criminals could no longer escape full accountability by claiming that they were too intoxicated to be held responsible for their actions. With this new legal precedent in place, Cooper's retrial proceeded in May 2014. This time, there was no ambiguity, no hesitation, and no doubt. The jury returned a definitive verdict. Brian Cooper was found guilty on all charges. He was sentenced to 2 consecutive life terms without the possibility of parole for the premeditated and heinous crime against Alicia.